Hello and welcome to April 2023. My name is Lynette. For those of you who don't know, I am reading from the For the Love of Relationships section in the April 2023 issue of the Love Exquisite Magazine. We're almost halfway through the year. I mean, it's still the beginning, but we're already about to be in the fourth month of a new year. So the time is going by so fast. The title of the article that I'm going to read is called Consistency. Consistency. In relationships, it is important to be consistent in regard to treating your mate with love and respect. The way you start out in a relationship, I'm going to read that again. The way you start out in a relationship sets the tone of the relationship and usually determines how long or how short the relationship will last. The way you treat your mate in the beginning of the relationship establishes an expectation that the same behavior will continue. So this is one of the reasons why you have to be mindful of the expectations you're setting in the beginning of the relationship, especially if you don't plan to be consistent with what it is that you're doing. This expectation could either be good or bad, depending upon if you are treated good or poorly. For example, if you do not want to set the expectation of monetary gifting, like if you start a relationship and say, "Oh, I can do this for you," or here go a couple dollars to do this, and you treating this person in a lavish kind of way. If you're when you're not you're setting up the expectation that you're always going to let this person experience this lavish lifestyle with you. And soon as that changes, the relationship changes. For some people, it also depends on their motive in the first place. If you're with someone who you consider a gold digger, but you're trying to impress them with what you do for them monetarily, then when they put their hand out, you can't expect them you can't say, "Oh, you're a gold digger," when you set that expectation. So be careful of what you are putting out there, because people are going to then become to expect you to do that same behavior all the time. Now, I know what you're saying is, but you're saying be consistent. So what I'm saying is, if you go back, rewind, I said with love and respect. Be consistent in those two areas. So be careful again how much you give a person that you are with in the relationship. If you are not going to continue that, do not set the expectation that you will always treat your mate in the same way, whether you treat them poorly or whether you treat them in a good way. So basically what I'm saying, if you treat someone poorly, be careful how you treat them, because in the event that you lose them because of how you're treating them, they will probably either not come back if you try to get them back, because they'll be like, "Oh, he or she is going to act in the same way. They're going to be consistent with treating me poorly." And it's the reverse if you treat them in a good way. You treat them in a good way, then they're going to expect that you will treat them in a good way consistently, which is what you should do in the first place. But so again, if you try to get someone back after you treated them poorly, I'm not saying that they won't come back. What I'm saying is they'll be hesitant, because they think that you won't change your behavior. They think that the behavior will be consistent. So when you consistently engage in a behavior, your mate will begin to expect you to always behave in the same manner. So you might hear them say, "Well, you used to," or "I remember when we blah, blah, blah," you fill in the blank. So you become inconsistent. When you become inconsistent with good behavior, your mate will want you to convert from the bad behavior and going back to your old ways, to good behavior. However, I have to be honest about consistency, because again, it depends on the situation and the circumstances. So here's my however. There are times when your mate will not, well, I won't say your mate, I'll say me. me, I'm talking about me right here. This is personal right here. So but your mate might feel the same way. So but here it is. Anyway, however, there are times when your mate will not want you to be consistent. And those times are usually, these are not edited, during sex. Meaning you have to be creative and switch it up sometimes. So your mate doesn't want you to do the same thing the same way all the time. That will get boring. So sometimes you have to switch it up, and you got to be a little inconsistent when in during the sexual activity type of thing. Now, I'm not talking about the number of times that you engage in the act. I'm talking about the way in which you engage in the act. Um, okay, so I'm gonna say that again because I always dive in. So, however, there are times when your mate will not want you to be consistent, and those times are usually during sex. You have to be creative and switch it up sometimes, and when you treat them poorly, he or she will want you to treat them better. So don't be consistent in the areas of treating someone poorly, and don't be consistent in the way in which you have sex. And the way in which you have sex, and meaning the positioning, the engaging in the activity itself, not the number of times. So when you behave in a negative way, it will be difficult to have a healthy and happy relationship. You might be happy. I should reiterate this again. When you behave in a negative way, it will be difficult to have a healthy and happy relationship. You, on the other hand, might be happy, but your mate certainly will not be. If you treat them poorly, if you mistreat them, they will not be happy, even if he or she decides to tolerate your mistreatment. Doesn't mean that they're happy. It just means that for some reason they just refuse to let you go until they had enough. Everybody gets to a point of enough at some point. So in regards to sex, let's go back to that. Your mate might want you to be consistent with the number of times that you are sexually active if you both share the same sexual appetite, a healthy sex drive is what I'm saying. With him or her, but they will not want you to be consistent with having sex in the same position all the time. Every person is different. Everybody is different. Everybody is different, is what I'm saying. Not everybody, every person, but that too. And everybody likes different things. So what one person might like, somebody else might be like, oh, no, that's not my stick. So anyway, if there's a behavior that you possess that was positive, okay, this is on a different note because this happens too in relationships. It's like if you used to do certain things, if you possess some positive attributes prior to your engaging in your current relationship, and all of a sudden your mindset shifts to, I'm not doing that anymore. Oh, I used to do that, but never again. Think about whether or not your mate translate that statement as, I don't think you deserve it, so I'm not doing it. I gotta say that again, because a lot of times people get broken and damaged from being in unhealthy relationships for so long that they then say, when they meet you, oh, I used to do this, but I ain't doing that no more. Or I used to, oh, I used to do this, but I'm not doing it again anymore. Or I used to do that, or whatever it is that they're saying they used to do, but they don't want to do it anymore because the last time that they did it, they were either taken advantage of, taken for granted, or they didn't get the outcome that they wanted to achieve. So just think about how your mate may interpret that. And more likely than not, they're interpreting those statements as you telling them you don't deserve it. So I'm not doing it again. I'm not ever doing it again. When they had nothing to do with whomever did whatever to you before they got there. So first you have to make sure that the person you are talking to actually deserves whatever it is that you're saying that you're not doing anymore. So think about that first. So before you say, well, I used to do this, or, I used to do that, I'm not doing it anymore, ever again, check yourself, because the person that you're talking to might actually be the person who deserved it, something that you gave willingly to someone else. Put a pin in it. So no one wants to hear you say, I'm not doing this anymore. If what you are referring to, um not doing something, is a positive, if it is a positive thing to do, if it's something that's positive, no one wants to hear you say you're not doing it. So most people can get used to familiarity. So once, if whatever you start, if it's a good thing, be consistent with that. If you cannot be consistent, or if you're just doing something to get what you want to get out of that situation for your own personal gain, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't set the relationship up for failure, because once consistency breaks, it is a breakdown in the relationship, and then the person starts to question how you feel about him or her. So keep that in mind. Even if they don't verbally speak it, I'm speaking it for them. Ask if you were consistent in your relationship and you have become inconsistent in doing some of the good things that you used to do with and for your mate and to your mate. Ask them, or do you feel like my consistency has changed? And if they say yes, then ask them, are they happy and content with who you have become? They may lie and say they are, but ask them, were they happy and content with who you were before the inconsistency? If they say yes, then you know that there is a shift in your relationship that they are not happy with. Now, sometimes things happen in relationships where you might start at the top, and then life challenges happen and you can no longer do the certain things that you used to do. A tragic experience might occur, or there might be some type of event that caused you to not be as consistent as you used to be. Those are excusable things when there's a legitimate reason behind why you are no longer inconsistent. But when the inconsistencies stem from, I'm just not doing it anymore, but you can do it, that's where you want to kind of wrestle with, does this person care about me enough to think about me enough to treat me in a good way, the way that I deserve to be treated? So be consistent and make sure that the person that you are consistent with deserves you, because not everybody does. So you want to make sure that they deserve you. Be consistent, because it really, in your relationships, be consistent, because it really does matter. Consistency is the article in the For the Love of Relationships section of the April 2023 magazine. Be consistent. Thank you for listening.